it may be a good moment to present my lineage as has been suggested to me. My principal teacher was a man whose name was H. His teacher was a man from Harvard called D. And D's teacher was Ouspensky. That is part of the line. D to H to me from Ouspensky. That's part of the lineage. The other part of the lineage is that Madame de Salzmann referred me and introduced me to Lord Pentland. That is your distance from the source. It's good and it's important to know where one is in terms of lineage. In the Eastern arts, the lineage is very important and it's very clearly displayed. For instance, there's a lineage directly from Chen Manqing, and as the line progresses and goes to the present, each student commemorates his teacher. It occurred to me that I've been watching on television from Turner Classic Channel clips of Scorsese and a few others talking about the idea of widescreen television, how most films since 1950 have been filmed in wide vision, and that the cut to make the picture fit the television set gives perhaps 2/3 of the material that was filmed. I'm sure people have seen this. As you see a scene happening on your TV, the widescreen shows the parts that are missing. There are more people in that scene. There is more happening. It is a bigger story. But we receive the condensed version. That's one of the issues of work. That man, as he is receiving only a condensed part of life because he is not conscious of the other parts. To review this idea, An individual must constantly remember that they are not the individual that they think they are. They are only a part of the picture. As if to describe that an individual stands there and that is only the shell. The consciousness is behind that. To the degree of consciousness there is, and to the degree of connection between the consciousness and the shell, or the personality. The less that consciousness is there, the smaller the reality, the smaller the connection, the less authentic the existence, and still the individual, in terms of the world, in terms of the daily life, continues to believe that he is. Well, he is not. He is a collection of personalities, of phantasms, of ghosts, of wishes, and illusions. Before anyone can move from the state they are, it is essential to realize that they are not one. And of course, many people say, I realize that, I understand it, but I assure you, realizing it, understanding it, giving verbiage of accent does not mean that it's realized. Only when an individual goes through all the moments of his life realizing that he is a walking illusion, then it begins to take place. An individual, quite annoyed, said, "You don't listen to me." And I said, there is no me to listen to. Let's go through that some more. Making the contrast between the pieces of the film that are missing. An impression occurs, comes to the individual. It goes through interpretations, it goes through illusion, it goes through fantasy, it goes through the various aspects of the emotion. It strikes as something that brings out jealousy or anger or fear or a million other components. And finally, the impression gets there. It is not the impression that is registered. It has gone through the fantasy, the illusion, the fear, the lies, and all the garbage that composes this unit. This unit, then, in reality, does not have a chance of being anything that is considered to be alive. It's a fantasy. To be alive must be in direct contact with the essential self. It must be able to look at a situation, be in a situation, and do so objectively. If something goes through the emotional center and the personalities, it is not valid. Doesn't it seem a pity that someone goes through their years and their days and never lived full screen? That robs the individual of the capacity to have a real friend, because the words of the real friend have never come through in their entirety. What has come through is a perception, a version. That same mechanism prevents not only the acceptance and the knowledge of real friendship, it prevents the individual from offering and giving real friendship. So for the vast majority of creatures, I love such and such is a complete and utter fantasy. Sir or madam, you are incapable of loving anyone. You would like to, word sounds nice, but you are incapable of it. That is why we hear you are incapable of loving yourself, because you are measuring yourself and seeing yourself through the fantasy, through the fears, through the illusions, through what you wish, through what you dare not. It's not true. In reality, the individual is not there. And therefore, unfortunately, he misses all his life. He has not lived life. Life has not happened to him. He lived in his imagination. His body is there, but his mind is in Detroit or Bermuda or where have you, with whoever they fantasize, under whatever circumstances. This then is only a stuffed animal with some clothes on it. Shameful. What a loss. The depth is not there. The surrender to it is not there. So I guess there isn't too much gratitude either. There isn't that part that says how utterly marvelous to be alive today, seeing what I'm seeing, being present to what I'm being present. A loss. It's a loss that the work seeks to repair. That is only one of the purposes of work, but that's a main one, so it's worth staying with. The work states that only by doing this work can a person ever achieve something called enlightenment. or reality or presence or a balance between the forces in the body. I firmly believe it's worth spending every year that it takes, because every year will provide even more reward. It is the fourth way. It is the work. It is the most demanding and the most rewarding enterprise that a person can achieve in their lifetime. Whatever it costs, one can be sure that one will receive at least 10 times in reward. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there is no life outside of the work. Would anybody like to ask any further on that subject? You are welcome to, that's why we're here. Very, very often, most of the time, perhaps the great majority of the time, the individual will say, well, I am fine. I have a home, I have a full belly, I have this, I have that, I have the other, I am fine. Which brings us to a second aspect of work. Seen through the eyes of daily life, mostly everyone is fine. Everybody ate, everybody has a place to sleep, a few dollars, love, this, sex, a car, fine. Seen and measured through the eyes of daily life, seen and measured through the eyes of the work, absolute poverty and nothing. Because the work says if you cannot really see the situation, you are blind. If you cannot really understand, there's no inner intelligence. If you don't have the qualities that the work speaks of, you are impoverished under the illusion that all is well, because the measure has become the sensual body. And the sensual body wants to be fed, it wants sex, it wants a car, it wants a home, it wants things of this world. Is there inner honesty to the individual itself? No, that's not necessary in this world. Can you achieve some contact with some form of creation? Absolutely not. Do you talk to yourself all the time? It goes fine in this planet, but not the other one. Do you go like a yo-yo from one emotion, one thought to the other all day long? Not 5 times, not 50, try 500. That no one thinks about in this planet, in this world. But in the other world, that is the basis of it. Of course, the personality, the shell here, only lives in that world. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. In the other world, there is eternity. There's qualities like peace, qualities like will, qualities like gratitude, qualities like real friendship and real love. The false dead man never will realize that. If we ask, is there something above man? Oh, yes. Surely. Churches are full on Sunday morning. When we ask, do those principles and that life, does that drive the life you have from day to day? Well, no, Sunday is fine. That's 52 hours a year. That's not too bad. From where does the driving force motivate? From the worldly daily desires or from the world of interior capacity? Just as an aside, it is my firm opinion that a person may pray all day long, but unless they are in contact with their real essential self, none of their prayers will come true. The prayer does not have the vibration to reach the source. But the essential self will realize its prayers. There is a direct connection with some sort of creation. Hopes will be realized for the person that is entire. Life will be realized only for the person who is entire. In The Strange Life of Ivan Osaki, Mr. Ouspensky talks about a man who has a yearning at some point in his life to live life again. Can it be different? A second chance. And in that novel, he receives his second chance. He speaks it at the exact moment. Magic. He is given a second chance. He lives his life again. And it comes out to be exactly as the first one. Why? Because the false personality person cannot live any other life but that life. It is born into a track of time and it repeats itself in time. The only way to break that cycle, as they call it, karma in the East, is to have a real self that is capable of really achieving, wishing, seeing, wanting, and caring. Or else, as Mr. Gurdjieff used to say, man is food for the moon. Never to break out of the circle of the present life. But the work does promise that if it is done, there'll be a change in that karma. Can one achieve gratitude in these days? To sit, or to walk, to look at the world, and feel in the heart of one's emotional self how fortunate and lucky we are to be alive. And with that comes the end of fear, the end of doubt, the end of feeling lost. What enters is something that Rudolf Otto once called life. Because the essential self is incapable of feeling fear, lust, anger, all the madnesses of the 7 deadly sins. Incapable of feeling that. It does not approach life in that percept. The true self is not afraid. The true self is capable of believing profoundly that whatever is happening at this moment is precisely what should be happening at this moment. Nothing else should be taking place other than what it is. And I say without reservation, whatever the situation is, that is what should properly be. What a change of heart that we're talking about. Oh, I wish it were. No. That energy comes to believe and accept whatever is happening to me, or you, or anyone, is precisely what should be happening. Yes, with the anguish, with the pain, with the sorrow, I lost this, I lost that. At this moment, I'm losing my life. Whatever it is, Africa sunk, or the moon went to the other side of Saturn. Whatever it is, that is properly what should be happening. Then, that being is able to say, all is well. All is happening. Whatever is happening to me should be happening because it is in my destiny to witness what's going on with me, to experience what is going on with me as a piece of teaching in this life. So, as Zarathustra said, is that life? Well then, once again, be gone with the people who are forever whining about what's happening to them. Oh me, oh my, I wish it were different. Realize that that is the voice of the little people, and that is the voice of the dead. If this is what's happening, then that is wonderful. Pain is part of living. Death is part of living. Letting go is part of living. Receiving is part of living. and realizing an eternal connection to a creator is part of living. Perhaps in time it's possible to say, was that my life? With all the ups, with all the downs, with all the tears, with the frustration, with everything, was that my life? Oh, yes, it was. And it was wonderful. Then, and only then, can a person begin to die in life. Before that, one comes whimpering in and goes whimpering out. When one can really say, I am alive. I want to live. Not this is happening to me and that's happening to me and I wish it were different and I lost my money, blah, 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 blah. Whining like the dogs they are. What's fitting for them? Food for the moon. That's what the work offers, and that is what the work has delivered 100 times out of 100. And no one here has a portfolio that has delivered 100 times out of 100. See, that noise should be here now. It is not wrong, it's not an injustice. It should be here. Click, the picture of time. Everyone should be sitting the way they are, doing what the way they are, looking the way they look, and feeling as they do. That is reality. That is what's happening. And reality has more of a right to exist than any fantasy. So that is part of what the work has to offer. Only part. One alternative is to look up and say, God, how could you do this to me? You dummkopf, you dunce, you jerk. What are you doing? Don't you realize who I am? I deserve better. Your idea of how my life should go is all wrong. Come on, man, get with it. I was supposed to be in Vegas. That's the cry of the little sniveling man. Thank the heavens that I have what I have. Because I do not have the effrontery to say that my intelligence is greater than God's, my knowledge of what should be is greater than God's, and whatever it is out there, call it by whatever name you will, doesn't know as much as I do. That, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the ground footsteps of real sin. In saying to a student this week, If someone near and dear to you says, I must go, I want to go, I don't want to be here with you anymore, the first response for most creatures will be, no, how can you do this to me? You're hurting me. I'll call my lawyer. I want half the cat. Rather saying, if you are saying you wish to live, that is part of the script that I'm living. So be it. Bless you. Have the remainder of your life. But very few people will say that. Have the rest of your life. And I guess that will allow me to have the rest of my life. There's no fear. Only the little person feels, what will happen to me now? Who will pay the other half of the rent? It's very expensive in Manhattan. So if everyone took a moment to say, this was your life today or last week or last year. This was exactly the way it was supposed to be. Things happened. You witnessed them. That was part of your lesson. If you don't learn to see it, experience it, and live with it, the lesson failed. Lesson failed, lesson fails, lesson fails. At the end, you die and the whole lesson failed. Oh, back to first grade. Start again. It's called satisfaction and gratitude. Look into the depths of your heart and the hearts of people around you and see how many have gratitude. I believe that when Mr. Gurdjieff said, honor your mother and father, it was far beyond the idea of the people who bore you. Honor your mother and your father and your past and all that made up all the events. More like the Easterners who say, honor your ancestors, honor their actions, and honor whatever brought you till today. Because it is essential that you be here today listening to this and being with each other. That is essential. You are not here by accident or because you were lost in the street and you came up here to borrow a telephone. You belong here through destiny. I belong here through destiny. And if this is where destiny wants me to be, with you, experiencing, thinking, living, then how marvelous it is to see each of you and to be here. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I belong. I'm here where I should be. Thank goodness. The thoughts that race through mind within a shattering of an instant Thank goodness for the presence of Mr. Gurdjieff, my mother and father, all the invisible world that makes up my totality, and yours. With these eyes, we only see a small part, 10, 12 people. With these eyes, we see all the world of the invisible. It's beautiful. I believe they are all here.